Cuphead show is known for copying, paying homage to 1930s animation. And Disney certainly has tons of famous retro animations that Cuphead homaged. And we're here to tell you about them. Number 1. Demon off the starboard bow. Our cup-based heroes in the Cuphead show have to face their familiar foe from the games, Cala Maria. While she sounds beautiful, wow, she could use a bit of an attitude adjustment. Much like another troublesome sea lady, Ursula from The Little Mermaid. In a very similar shot, our heroes face both characters who tower over them while at sea. We don't know who'd be worse to face.
We gotta get out of here, Briney! Let's go!
Number 2. Stop bugging out, man. In the Cuphead show, Mugman has a big scare when he mistakes some well-placed fireflies for scary monster eyes. But he's not the only lovable animated character in history to be spooked in a scary forest by something non-threatening.
Whoa! That was an owl!
The scene and shot is nearly identical to the scene from Disney's 1937 animated film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, where she has a nearly identical scare, though this time the eyes are real, but they belong to an equally harmless owl. Without passing judgment, we think we'd be pretty scared too. Number 3. From Disney to a big meme to the Cuphead show. In the Cuphead show episode Ghosts Ain't Real, the Cuppy duo meet a group of dancing skeletons while being stalked and spooked by a bunch of ghosts. Internet-savvy folks will immediately think of the internet meme with the old-styled animated dancing skeletons, but many folks may not realize this meme actually uses footage from the classic Disney animated short, The Skeleton Dance. There is no doubt the prominence of the meme itself had a part to play in the Cuphead show incorporating the scene, as the show does seem to aim for faces and moments that become memeable. Number 4. And you thought your friends were skinny. In episode 5 of the first season of the Cuphead show, King Dice's musicians include a group of card-based characters churning out some hits. For fans of Disney's classic Alice in Wonderland, these cards will look very familiar. The old Disney film from 1951 has very similar looking card people. However, in this instance, they act as the underlings for a queen rather than a king. The Queen of Hearts, to be exact. She has her imposing card soldiers intimidate and arrest young, innocent Alice. So we certainly prefer the card people from the Cuphead show. Number 5. Once you see the pants, everything falls into place. Cuphead, since his inception, has always meant to be an ode to the big mouse himself, Mickey Mouse. While many of his features are common to many classic-style cartoon characters, his features most resemble the famous mouse, including his black body, his red pants, brown round shoes, glove design, skinny arms and legs, and of course, on occasion, some very similar attitude and facial expressions. Now, one you would keep as a pet and the other you use to drink from, but otherwise they're almost the same, no? Number 6. Remember kids, magic is all about the hands, or at least that's what these animated shows believe. In episode 9 of the Cuphead show, the devil agrees to paint Elder Kettle's fence if Cuphead takes off the sweater, preventing him from taking his soul.
Is that so?
The devil does nothing without a little flair, of course, and shows the boys how a magical being gets the job done. His technique here is key for noticing this next Disney imitation, as Mickey Mouse from The Sorcerer's Apprentice controlled some broomsticks with the exact same open hand rising techniques and form the devil uses. The paintbrushes the devil uses even look similar to the brooms from that classic Disney animation. Never thought there was this much overlap between paintbrushes and brooms, but here we are.
That is how you paint a fence!
Number 7. Ghosts just gotta haunt, don't they?
Well, I know what we're doing tonight.
In episode 6 of the Cuphead show, Cuphead and Mugman are beset upon by a group of ghostly ghouls after insisting they cannot be scared. They are not the first animated group of likable characters to be chased by ghosts that look like this, however, as Mickey, Goofy, and Donald Duck are annoyed and stalked by ghosts with a nearly identical design. The red nose on each ghost is a dead giveaway that this episode and ghost design was an ode to the 1937 Disney classic Lonesome Ghosts. Cuphead and Mugman keep their finger guns holstered, however, while Mickey chose a different approach. Number 8. Some folks are Mickey Mouse people, and some folks are Oswald the Rabbit enjoyers. While Cuphead is meant to resemble the more famous Mickey Mouse, Mugman, by contrast, is meant to resemble another Disney character with a long history, Oswald the Rabbit. Oswald actually predates Mickey Mouse, but over the years, Mickey took over as Disney's mascot, while Oswald fell from favor. Seen side by side, it's easy to spot how the Cup coupling is meant to be an ode to Mickey and Oswald and their somewhat newer friendship with each other. Though the Cup Bros definitely have more sinister intentions than their kinder inspiration.
It dies!
Number 9. Card people, Cupheads, and now Saxofolks. The Cuphead show features some saxophone-based folks who unfortunately suffer through Cuphead's antics in the opening of the show. But sax people have a long history in animation, dating back all the way to Disney's Silly Symphonies cartoon over 80 years ago in an animation called Musicland, where two lovers from different worlds attempt to make it work despite their parents' war. Now, those sax people were more prone to violence. Hopefully Cuphead didn't invoke this history of wrath after his and Mugman's stunt. Number 10. All things considered, there's not that much to laugh about.
Not funny, Cuphead. Uh-huh.
In episode 6 of the first season of the Cuphead show, Mugman has a moment of laughing to himself against a log as he realizes he was scared for nothing.
You know, it's actually kind of peaceful out here.
Which turns out not to be the case, as he was about to be haunted. The setting, scene, and beats are almost exactly the same as Hickabob's in the Disney classic The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Hickabob is similarly leaning against a log, laugh happy before his worst nightmare appears, the Headless Horseman. I think the two characters would also get along since they have a very similar disposition. Number 11. Add phone people to our never-ending list of object-turned-humans.
Hello.
This character from the Cuphead show is styled after an older version of the telephone. And they might be a grandchild of the telephone person from Disney's classic Through the Mirror. Not only do both characters use the same type of telephone to form a character, but their design is also very similar. We never get to see the Disney version play skee-ball at a carnival, but now we sort of know what it would look like. Number 12. You might not be super big on labels, but older animations sure are. Title cards were a big deal back in the day, not just for animation, but for a lot of retro films and television shows. The Cuphead show didn't miss a beat by having their episodes introduced the old-fashioned way. In particular, you can see how similar the Season 2 Episode 4 title card, Another Brother, was to Disney's No Service title card starring Mickey Mouse.
Come closer, young ones, so I may advise.
How many characters from the Cuphead game actually made cameos in the Cuphead show? There are more appearances in this series than we expected, and you probably missed a few. Let's get into it.
I'll go with it.
Number 1. One of the more obvious cameos in the Cuphead show, aside from our main characters of course, is the lovely octopus-haired giant mermaid, Calamaria.
Calamaria! Hi!
Those who've played the Cuphead game surely know Calamaria. She was a boss on the High Seas Hijinks level of the game. In the game, you have to shoot at Calamaria whenever she pops up out of the sea. In this series, however, she's the Cuphead show's ultimate seductress, winning the hearts of both BRINEYBEARD and Mugman. But that doesn't mean she's actually interested in winning hearts. She seems more focused on eating.
Romance isn't in the cards right now.
We love a relatable mermaid. Number 2. Captain BRINEYBEARD is another famous boss from the Cuphead game. Yet instead of fighting him from the dock while BRINEYBEARD is on his ship like he does in the game, in the series, Cuphead is more of a fan of BRINEYBEARD than a foe.
Yay!
He goes from helping him on his quest to really defending him. Even though BRINEYBEARD didn't get the girl in the end, at least he made friends along the way. Number 3. Captain Crustacean is a really funny-looking giant lobster who you'll have to fight if you venture into the perilous piers level of Cuphead. You'll have to have quite the eagle eye to spot this lobster in the series, though. He's just in the background working on a boat in Season 2 when Cuphead and Mugman are about to board Captain BRINEYBEARD's ship. Wow, Captain Crustacean must have been working out since we last saw him. We don't remember him being that buff in the game. Number 4. When you first spot Hilda Berg in the Cuphead game, she's perched on a cloud. She then turns into a blimp. Since Hilda is such a well-known and classic Cuphead character, many fans of the game have wished that her presence in the series would have been more than just the super short cameo that it was. We think though that this was a perfectly fitting appearance. She appears briefly in Season 2 in her blimp form, flying in the sky overhead and cackling maniacally. Cuphead, Mugman, and Miss Chalice wave hi at her from their car below, and in that moment all seems right in the Cuphead world.
That was swell!
Number 5. Goopy Legrand is another boss you're sure to run into if you play the Cuphead game. If you're thinking that you didn't catch Goopy Legrand in the Cuphead show though, don't worry, you're definitely not alone. Goopy didn't make a cameo in the obvious ways some others did, but that doesn't mean he isn't there. He actually makes an appearance in the theme sequence, where his face is on a headstone like it is in some parts of the game. In this case though, he looks pretty mad. Number 6. Ludwig was a kind of cute little grumpy gramophone-headed guy in the Cuphead game. He looked very different when he made a cameo in Season 2 of the Cuphead show.
I got CROAKS to catch.
But despite his extreme makeover, he played a main character in the episode Piano Lesson.
Just release the tension in your hands.
Number 7. CYCLOPS is a sub-boss from Cuphead's Rugged Ridge level, and she's known for being invincible. But according to the Cuphead show Season 2, she's not actually that invincible, since she managed to land herself in jail. Sorry, CYCLOPS, but if you can't do the time, don't chase after innocent little cups. Well, mostly innocent little cups.
Nah, I don't want to hear another word.
Number 8. Baroness von Bonbon is the primary boss of Cuphead's Sugarland Shimmy level. She's known for her castle that just so happens to be alive and goes by the name of Whippet Cream Pup, as well as her demeanor and appearance that seems utterly sweet in more ways than one, but is actually really, really scary.
You got a real creepy way about you, lady.
Well, Baroness von Bonbon taught us to never judge a boss by its cover, and her role in Season 2 of the Cuphead show solidifies this. She turned out to be just as scary as ever. Number 9. Sally's stage play only made a short cameo in the Cuphead Season 2.
Oh, do excuse me.
But fans of the game were happy to see her nevertheless. Game players fight Sally's stage play in the dramatic fanatic level of the game. If you had trouble beating her in the game and still harbor a little resentment, you're in luck. Cuphead gets his revenge in the Cuphead show. With the help of Mugman and Miss Chalice, he scams her.
It's the perfect scam.
Number 10. Werner Vermin is a very battle-ready rat from the Marine Corps level of Cuphead.
The name is Werner Vermin.
He got his own episode in Season 2 of the Cuphead show. Interestingly though, in the game, Werner was much bigger than Cuphead, and in the series, he's more rat-sized. If Cuphead and Mugman are human-sized, that is. If Cuphead is cup-sized, then Werner is actually super small. Wow, this is getting confusing. Number 11. The devil makes more than just a quick cameo in the Cuphead show.
Hello?
This was really no surprise since he's the primary antagonist in the game and now also the series. The devil appeared quite a bit in both Seasons 1 and 2, and while he had some very funny scenes, the devil definitely lived up to his name and proved himself as the biggest villain in the Cuphead universe. Major spoiler alert, he abducted poor Mugman and took him to hell.
Goodbye to Cuphead.
And we have to admit, we're pretty worried about Mugman. He has way too much anxiety for hell. Number 12. In the game, King Dice is the devil's sidekick of sorts, and as such, he is one of the most difficult bosses to beat. Because of his prominent position in the game, it's fitting that he's also had quite a large role in the series compared to some of the other bosses.
Who's the host with the most?
You can see him in both Season 1 and 2. Number 13. RIBBY and CROAKS are the final bosses you'll encounter on Inkwell Isle 1 in the Cuphead game. Since they're a particularly important and classic pair of bosses, it makes sense that, like King Dice, RIBBY and CROAKS appear in both seasons of the Cuphead show.
Cover charge is $20.
The froggy pair plays a pretty large role in Season 1, but if you blink you could miss them in Season 2. You can see them seesawing in Season 2, and it's really nice to see these two tough guys are getting along these days. Number 14. Things are looking grim. Grim Matchstick is the dragon boss who you encounter if you ever play the Fiery Frolic level of Cuphead. This dragon, or should we say dragons, appears in Season 1 to retrieve their baby, or should we say babies. Life must be so confusing when you have 3 heads. Number 15. Sergeant Gumbo Gumball is an anthropomorphic gumball machine. He comes from Baroness von Bonbon's Sugarland Shimmy level in the game, and he makes a subtle cameo in Season 1. When Miss Chalice uses a gumball machine, it comes to life, and we know exactly who that is. Nice try hiding there, Gumbo. Number 16. The Root Pack is, per their name, a pack of root vegetables. The group is composed of a potato named Sal Sputter, an onion who goes by the name of Ollie Bulb, and Chauncey Chantenay, who's a carrot who just so happens to have a hidden third eye. That's some real plant-based nightmare fuel. Together, the group makes up the boss you must beat in the Botanic Panic level of Cuphead. And they also have plenty of screen time in Season 1 of the Cuphead show. Number 17. Good old Pork Rind. He's the owner of the shop aptly named Pork Rind's Emporium in the Cuphead game, where players can exchange the coins they've collected for gear and weapons. It's good to see this familiar face along with his shop in the series, because it helps to flesh out the idea that Inkwell Isle is a real place with consistent establishments between the game and the series. Did you spot all those cameos in the Cuphead show? Were there any sneaky appearances that you caught that we didn't mention? We want to hear all about it in the comments.
Cuphead and Mugman have finally returned to Netflix for the Cuphead show's second season. We all know that Cuphead loves to pay homage to classic animation. And what's more classic than Disney? We've got the Disney references Cuphead has made all in one place. Let's check them out.
That's our cue.
Number 1. Calamaria is a giant mermaid, but she's a lot more like another character than she is the Little Mermaid.
Is that what I think it is?
Calamaria has a lot in common with Ursula. She lives in her lair waiting for someone to arrive so she can do something objectively evil to them. Not to mention, like Ursula, she sings a pretty sinister song.
Wow, you have a beautiful voice.
Number 2. The main character of Cuphead may actually be modeled after the main character of Disney. You may have noticed that most of the characters in Cuphead wear those famous gloves. These gloves were common in classic animation, but we're most familiar with seeing them on Mickey Mouse. Not only does Cuphead wear Mickey's famous gloves, but he also wears shorts and shoes that are similar to his.
It's me, Agent Mickey Mouse.
Number 3. Cuphead borrows a thing or two from Beauty and the Beast, and we think what the series borrowed is very fitting for a show called The Cuphead Show. Beauty and the Beast and Cuphead both have quite a few characters that are anthropomorphized household objects, but the parallels actually go even deeper. To start, as a white teapot and pink accents, Cuphead's house reminds us a lot of Miss Potts, and Elder Kettle is a teapot man, while Miss Potts is a teapot woman. Wouldn't they just be the cutest couple? She'd also be a great stepmom of sorts to Cuphead and Mugman, since they're cup people, just like her son Chip.
Chip. Oops, sorry.
Number 4. In episode 5, Cuphead and Mugman go to a place called Sugarland, and we think this world looks awfully familiar. Sugarland looks like it borrowed a lot of its aesthetics from Wreck-It Ralph. Both of these worlds are all about sugar and sweets. They both have candy castles, and they both get just a little out of control.
Didn't you hear the song? It's Sugarland.
Number 5. The devil in Cuphead seems like he'd get along perfectly with Hades from Disney's Hercules. They're both wisecracking, sarcastic jokesters who have very little good in their hearts and just so happen to rule over the underworld. They both also take their jobs very seriously, and these two pairs look a lot alike.
Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
Number 6. While we can't actually hear their song, there are singing flowers in the Cuphead theme sequence. It's hard to see singing flowers without thinking of Alice in Wonderland. If we were able to mute the Cuphead theme song, maybe we'd hear those flowers singing The Golden Afternoon. And since Cuphead loves surrealism just as much as Alice in Wonderland does, we wouldn't be too surprised to see those famous butterbread butterflies flying around these flowers either. Number 7. One moment in Cuphead 2 stands out above the rest when it comes to making a very obvious Disney reference. This little kid who loses his ice cream is almost certainly a young Goofy. Not only would we recognize that Goofy face anywhere, but it looks like he's just got a bigger version of the same outfit as he got older. We're gonna look at old Goofy so differently now, knowing he was that cute when he was little.
Something seems different about you.
Number 8. And just seconds later, there seems to be another time-traveling Disney character we all know and love. This old woman looks to be an older version of Minnie Mouse. From the ears to the glove to the snout, she bears a lot of similarities to what we think Minnie would look like in her later years. But we're simply gonna have to forget about what happens to her at the end of this scene. Number 9. Cuphead and Mugman have a very interesting jailmate at the Inkwell Penitentiary. This man looks a lot like Mickey's arch-nemesis, Pete. You may know him as Peg-Leg Pete. Since Pete was actually Disney's first ever villain, it's a pretty smart reference to show him as an inmate.
Aha! Your game's up, Pete!
Number 10. Pickle and Peanut was an animated Disney series that ran from 2015 through 2018, and its main characters were, of course, a pickle and a peanut. The trolley driver in the 4th episode of Cuphead's 2nd season is an anthropomorphic peanut. And we've seen an anthropomorphic peanut with a shell, and all like that one in Peanut and Pickle. Number 11. Cuphead and Mugman have circling birdies around their heads, and Elder Kettle references them, calling them pain stars. Circling birdies were common in the golden age of animation and appeared in many Disney cartoons of the time.
Are those pain stars?
Number 12. Disney World's Haunted Mansion is one of its most famous attractions. There were many similarities between it and the mansion where Cuphead, Mugman, and Chalice run into the real ghosts. Both mansions have spooky paintings, decor that glows green, and some elderly ghosts.
Ooh, this next house is creepy.
Number 13. There's a Silly Symphony episode called Music Land that the Cuphead intro seems to draw a lot from. It starts with a title card and a map just like Cuphead does, and it has anthropomorphized instruments just like the Cuphead intro. Number 14. When Cuphead is left to fend for himself in the woods, he has a pretty unpleasant encounter with some squirrels. From their eyelashes to their rather human-like movements, the squirrels that beat up Cuphead are reminiscent of the squirrels from The Sword in the Stone.
Oh, you squirrely squirrels!
Number 15. No matter how much animation you've watched, you probably noticed that Cuphead's title cards look very familiar. While these old-fashioned title screens have been used in many different cartoons from the 1940s and 1950s, they were especially familiar in Mickey Mouse, Goofy, and Donald Duck features during that time. Number 16. Have you ever heard of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit? He's a character Walt Disney created back in 1927. While Oswald may not have the reputation Mickey has, when you see those two characters next to each other, their color schemes make them look a whole lot like Cuphead and Mugman. And there's even more reason to believe that Mugman is inspired by Oswald. Oswald tends to be Mickey's more serious counterpart. Number 17. One of the most obvious Disney references in the Cuphead show came in the series' first season. In the 6th episode, skeletons dance around Cuphead and Mugman exactly like the skeletons in the 1929 Silly Symphony short titled The Skeleton Dance. If you don't recognize the name of this short, you'd almost certainly recognize the gifs it inspired, which have basically become a Halloween staple. Number 18. Speaking of famous Disney gifs, there's a pretty clear reference to a Snow White scene that inspired some very popular reaction gifs. When Cuphead leaves Mugman in the woods, things get pretty scary. Not only is this scene reminiscent of when Snow White is scared and disoriented in the woods, but the two make pretty similar movements. Number 19. We think something else important came from Silly Symphony besides the silly skeletons. This time, it's from a short called Hell's Bells. If you're not familiar with that episode of Silly Symphony, all you need to see is this character to immediately know how Cuphead paid homage to it. Yes, it looks like the Devil's character design was based on Disney's Devil's character design. Sure, Cuphead's devil looks a bit more sophisticated and fleshed out, but from that round face to the identical tails to that, shall we say, devilishly toothish grin, we think there's a pretty uncanny resemblance. Number 20. We all remember that scene from season 1 when the devil paints the fence. Well, while Mickey may use a broom instead of paintbrushes, he seems to do his chores in a pretty similar way in The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Even that music is similar. Did you notice all those nods to Disney? What other references did you catch that we didn't mention? Let us know in the comments.
When I've got you as a student, it's Godfrey Daniel!
The Cuphead game might be hard to beat, but their show on Netflix is very easy to binge watch.
Correct!
Not all cups are measured equal though. And there are some big differences between the Cuphead show and the game. Number 1. The root pack from the show isn't nearly as powerful as they were in the video game. And even then, they weren't the toughest bunch, so that's saying a lot. Even though they are one of the first bosses in the game and not as troublesome as the later foes like Grimlock and King Dice, the root pack gave the Cup duo more trouble in the game than in the show.
Gee, that sure is sad.
During the game, Cuphead and Mugman just fight one after the other in a 3-part battle, while in the TV show, the pack is responsible for sucking up all the nearby water other veggies were meant to have. Luckily, Elder Kettle reveals his plans for the enlarged pack of creeps, a veggie stew, which sends them packing without any supers or parries required. Number 2. Miss Chalice might be the character with more makeovers than any other in the franchise.
Hey, it's me, Chalice!
In her first appearance in the game, she's a ghost being attacked by some parryable ghosts. And her appearance is definitely meant to be of an older person. Not that we're experts on the aging of fine china. However, in her show debut, she's portrayed as a young prankster, able to shift in and out of ghost form at will. Then, in the DLC for Cuphead, in the Delicious Last Course, oh my gosh, we just realized DLC, Delicious Last Course. It's an acronym. These games are awesome. Anyway, in the DLC, she's interchangeable with the Cup duo as she takes on a corporeal form. And then finally in Season 2 of the Netflix show, well, she's pretty similar to Season 1, but she finally reveals herself as a half-ghost.
Hiya, fellas!
Essentially, it seems her canon and design changed when she was decided to become a playable character. Fair enough. Number 3. For a king, he sure gets pushed around a lot. King Dice is a villainous casino-owning crook in the video games, and a minion of the devil. He comes across as quite sinister, and there are more adult-oriented themes surrounding him and his own minions. In the games, before the duo can defeat him, they must fight humanoid cigars, poker chips, dice, and alcoholic beverages. Perhaps a metaphor for overcoming their own addictions? Probably not, but we do know Cuphead has a gambling problem for sure. This is dialed down in the show. While Cuphead does get ahead of himself while playing a game, it's not in a casino but at a carnival, a much more kid-friendly environment. Anyway, back to King Dice. In the show, King Dice has been watered down to an unsavory showman. Still up to no good, but without the more adult-oriented themes of tricking people into giving in to their addictions. Number 4. Arguably the most important character in the game finally gets the spotlight he deserves in the show.
Close the door, boys.
Elder Kettle is a very important but small character in the video game, giving Cuphead and Mugman their snappy spell after Cuphead gets them into trouble. The ability to shoot while snapping is essential not only for gameplay, but also for the Cups to gather the required contracts and save themselves and eventually all of Inkwell Isle. In the show, his role is expanded, but he has a more comical side and gets very upset whenever Cuphead and Mugman fight.
No fighting!
The show implies that he's a retired war veteran and a decorated war hero. Which war? Maybe Vietnam? Number 5. Another character who gets a more complex makeover for the show.
Say goodbye to Cuphead.
Goodbye.
In the game, the devil is just straight up evil, without an ounce of humor, and just out to make everyone his minion and own their souls. He also has the contract for both Cuphead and Mugman's souls, leading them both to journey out and save themselves. The devil from the show, however, is a much more fun, vibrant character who helps carry the humor of the show along with the Cup-based duo.
A Cyclops with an eye patch.
While the people of Inkwell Isle fear him just like the game version would never be caught painting Elder Kettle's fence for any reason, while the show version does. The game version appears a little more villainous in design, while the show's version has been softened because, say it with us, it's a children's show. Number 6. This is likely the first time you're hearing this character's name.
I am QUADRATUS the Great and Wise.
In the Cuphead video game, there is a face inside a pool about halfway through the game whose name is Quadratus. And he's a bit of a downer, because he'll tell you how many times you lost your health and had to start over since you started playing. He's not as much of a downer in the TV series, however. He's actually super helpful to the two Cups, as he tells them how to defend against the devil's scheme to take Cuphead's soul, by knitting an invisible sweater from a special thread. Nice to know he's not just there to explain what a bad gamer you are, for once.
Oh, how sweet. Now get knitting!
Number 7. Tough boss turned tough parent. One of the most infamously difficult bosses in Cuphead gets a bit of an edit from his video game appearance. The dragon Grim Matchstick is actually pretty similar to his video game counterpart in style, but a few things from the game don't get included. In the game, the boss begins as simply a one-headed dragon. Easy enough. But as the fight progresses, Grim reveals 2 more heads, getting a Ghidorah-styled makeover. In this form, when one of the heads breathes fire, it turns into a literal red flamethrower. I mean, it was already a dragon, we wouldn't have questioned it. For the TV show, Grim makes an appearance as the parent to an egg Cuphead and Mugman snatch to give to Porkrind. The appearance is pretty faithful to his 3-headed form. However, when it burns Porkrind, there's no flamethrower-type transformation of any heads.
I hate those cups.
Which we think would have been a cool shout-out to the game. Alas, the game and show are simply not the same beast. Number 8. This next change is for the animation nerds out there. The big part of why Cuphead the video game was such a well-received and cool addition to indie gaming was the unique art style the creators wanted for the game. To achieve this ode to 30s style animation, they insisted on hand-drawing all the animations themselves. This is a time-consuming and exhaustive process, especially for an entire game. But the team persevered, and gamers flocked to their respective gaming devices to enjoy the visuals. The show, on the other hand, is computer animated using a similar design from the video games. While die-hard animation lovers were critical of the lack of commitment to the game's style, we can't blame them. CGI saves so much time which can be spent on other parts of a show to improve it. Also, the show is targeted to children. And children aren't generally critical of the subtleties of hand-drawn versus computer-generated animation, at least the ones we know. Number 9. This snap decision left fans a little puzzled. As we mentioned earlier, the run-and-gun style of the video game was based on the iconic snap power and sound gamers used to obliterate the colorful foes of Inkwell Isle. Of course, this is perfect for a violent video game where you go around beating people up to collect their souls for the devil.
Hello?
If you're making a kids show, however, you might not want to include a gun that works with the snap of your fingers. The show makes for more family-friendly content, and with that decision came the removal of Cuphead and Mugman's projectile snapping powers. They still snap in the show, but no dangerous energy-based projectiles come screaming out of there to attack people in the vicinity. Number 10. The Rock'em Sock'em duo from the game get a more regal look in the TV show. RIBBY and CROAKS started as a boss battle on a boat in the original game. Their designs seem to be more of an attraction on the boat they live on than as managers or as the type of people who would run any type of show. They're wearing fighting gear and they launch their own projectile bullets much like the Cup duo do. But for the Netflix show, RIBBY and CROAKS got the Netflix redesign.
What's with those gloves?
Oh, we used to be pro boxers.
Going from what looked like dumb jocks to full-on suave business types. The two run a boat business with a steep entry fee. One Cuphead and Mugman don't have the funds for. The frogs are constantly bickering with each other, much like the TV version of Cuphead and Mugman, and have a backstory about their mother who hates to see them fight. However, they never put away the boxing gloves, as they still wear them and use them fairly often. Though the Cups do notice the boxing gloves pretty quickly. Number 11. Another big sell for gamers out there was the 30s style score of the video game. To match the older animation style of the game, the creators also had live orchestras playing full scores for various levels and boss battles. The game was able to gain some viral traction thanks to the popularity of instrumental songs like Botanic Panic and Floral Flurry, with blazing horns and jazzy, swinging music.
Stop!
The show does utilize a similar sounding score, but the depth of the music is certainly not there in comparison to the video game soundtrack. The show is not without its own musical charm, however, as it alone has fully sung songs by the villains of respective episodes, like the iconic, nearly Disney-level villain song sung by the devil in episode 1. Number 12, and for the final difference from the game to the show, we're gonna talk about you. That's right, you. If you played the game, then you're probably not under 16 years old. If you watch the show, well, we don't want to judge. As we've discussed, the game can be played by anyone, but because of its more mature themes and difficulty, no one would describe it as a kid's game. But you know what is for kids? the Cuphead show on Netflix. The game is best enjoyed by older folks who appreciate older animation styles and no references to long-standing video game mechanics. While the show is filled with slapstick jokes and childish shenanigans the kiddies will enjoy. Different strokes for different folks. Those were the biggest changes we noticed between the cup-based adventurers from their digital debut to their Netflix shenanigans. Any you noticed that we didn't mention? How do you feel about the changes?
There isn't anybody else I'd rather go around blowing stuff up with.
There are 1,000,010 moments from the Cuphead show that are definitely not kid-friendly.
Take it off and I'll give you $10.
Cursing, dirty jokes, violence, and homages to old tropes that were better left buried. We're looking at all the terrible moments kids might not have understood. Number 1. We're starting off this thing with a bang. While the Cuphead show is rated 7+, we can't help but feel that age is low, and here's why. Bullboy literally shattered, and we were led to believe he was a goner. But in true cartoon fashion, of course he came back. Why we felt this differs from something like the Looney Tunes is we're led to believe that he really met his demise. Number 2. Does the shady piano teacher deserve what's coming? While this is an age-old trope, dropping pianos on characters with these malicious intentions are usually not seen in children's shows these days. Mugman tried to drop the piano on his brother Cuphead. Of course, his teacher takes the brunt of the damage after stealing Cuphead's song and spotlight. Number 3. I scream, you scream. We all scream for the ice cream man to just go away. And out of the realm of tropes, which to some degree we forgive because homages are just classic, the villainous side of Mugman gets super dark.
This ends now!
He tries to take out the ice cream man for playing his ice cream music too loud. Then it's implied that the ice cream man wants to run Mugman over. Of course, in comedic fashion, that turns out to be a twist for comedy's sake, but we are still left to believe it, even if just for a moment. Number 4. Poor Elder Kettle just isn't shiny anymore. It's time to donate him. Misunderstanding the scenario of the boys mourning a dying worm, Elder Kettle thinks they want to put him out of his misery and bury him in the yard.
We'll make it quick and painless.
Number 5. Kitchen shears are handy sometimes. They're just one of the many weapons in this show. After being dropped by his music teacher, Mugman feels a deep-seated desire to destroy the talent of his brother.
Cuphead can't play in the recital if he doesn't have any hands!
Number 6. The devil incinerated a bunch of demons. You can't tell us that's kid-friendly.
Ow! What did you do?
Number 7. And speaking of fire, he sets the entire city on fire.
Lost my touch? I think not.
You know who else likes to set fires, though? Elder Kettle, who is an arsonist. Doesn't sound like a children's show when you phrase it like that, huh? There are some baby pics we would like to burn too, Elder Kettle. Number 8. Impossible isn't the word for it. So when Cuphead finds himself a new brother, he and Bullboy literally drown themselves for fun and then ride on top of a train. Yes, we did see this in Aladdin, at least the drowning part, but something about it just screams not for kids. Number 9. The Cuphead show is far more than just violent. It's also downright creepy. Between the Baroness and Chalice's ghostly scare, there's lots that can freak kids out. However, one moment in particular wins the cake. Elder Kettle becomes the Grudge. And that movie is definitely not for children. Number 10. Sometimes just the language of the characters is foul enough. From antiquated curse words that slipped off the radar to dark analogies, Cuphead is definitely throwing a bone to an older audience.
Our chances of survival are slim to none. And Slim just drowned.
Winter is a merciless killer.
Well, you don't have to be such a...
Number 11. Stabby things can be spotted in nearly every episode. There's a colorful array of weapons in the show. From kitchen shears to ice cream cones to pitchforks to explosives and makeshift cannons, the show's full of violence. Number 12. The morality of the characters is one huge factor of the Cuphead show that sets it apart from other children's shows. There's no good moral character. Mugman is the closest this show comes, but that's out of his own cowardice. The characters are cruel, vindictive, thieving bullies. While moments of goodness shine through in the characters from time to time, they're still all seriously awful, and that's part of the show's charm. Number 13. Our parents didn't listen when we told them vegetables were bad. One seriously obvious moment from season 1 that was not meant for children was the raging party the vegetables threw. Water was a stand-in for alcohol, obviously, and we just can't help but find it weird they were drinking through their nether regions. Not that veggies have nether regions, but you know, you give them a few human characteristics and it's hard to ignore.
Maybe one last sip for the road.
Number 14. This saucy number was definitely not made for kids. There's a moment where Mugman tries to seduce the German rat by dressing his hand up like Swiss cheese. Number 15. It's quite understandable for your girlfriend to be jealous if sentient spaghetti is making love to your face.
So, are you gonna introduce me to your little friend?
Number 16. Love is messy. Oddly, the Cuphead show reflects it well.
Yeah, it's love on the rocks. Get it?
Everything about Captain BRINEYBEARD's relationship with the sea monster was very adult.
It's 'cause I love you, baby.
Don't call me baby.
Love is tough. Number 17. The Baroness puts Hansel and Gretel to shame. Okay, we could be coming up with this all in our own heads, but this doesn't seem appropriate to us.
Ain't you gonna eat my sweets?
What do you think? Dirty or innocent? Number 18. Sometimes Cuphead and Mugman become man and wife for a moment.
Get out! Don't come back until you learn some self-control!
Now this moment is totally coded. It is literally the wife kicking the husband out on his butt for drinking too much. Cuphead has the 5 o'clock shadow made of chocolate to prove it. Number 19. Seriously, for a kids show, it has weirdly mature breakup scenes.
I'll never give up on love. Relationships are a series of peaks and valleys.
Now that's a joke for adults. Number 20. That feel when the male person's the only one who can love you.
Special delivery! For you this time.
Mugman, the lonely housewife in his apron with his pie, is flirting with the mailman.
No thank you, here's your mail.
Number 21. This twin trope can be burned. Where's Elder Kettle when you need him? Sal Spud and the Heirloom Sisters are embracing another one, guys. Sal is trying to get with a set of twin tomatoes. Naughty, naughty. Number 22. And now for the episode that's title is shamelessly ripping off the Looney Tunes.
That's all, folks.
The episode Rats All Folks is really leaning into replicating anti-war propaganda, with a German rat going toe-to-toe with the retired war vet Elder Kettle. This propaganda was popular among cartoonists during the war. That included Disney's Donald Duck.
Well. Which will it be? Your precious cottage or your precious cups?
Number 23. It's about time we get thrown in the slammer.
Morning, Lefty. Got that blood out of your jumpsuit.
Everything about the opening episode of Season 2 is rife with stuff not suitable for children. Lockpicking, the electric chair, more explosives. Yeah, we would have loved this show as kids too.
I didn't make it. Ugh.
Number 24. In the episode where Bowl Boy is trying to seem like a daredevil, we don't think it's a coincidence that his nickname Bowlsy sounds a lot like something else. Number 25. And finally, the references you only understood if you were over the age of how long has Tom Sawyer been out? And the opening of the show is most definitely an homage to Tom Sawyer. The cups trick the devil into painting the fence, which happens in the book.
And that is how you paint a fence!
Yes, the Cuphead show is rife with explosions and weapons and dirty jokes, and this definitely would have been our Saturday morning cartoon if we were still kids. Did you spot any moments meant for adults that we neglected to mention?
I'm going nuts!
Season 2 of the Cuphead show is making waves on Netflix. We want to see the recycled scenes that this fan-favorite series used again and again. From scenes that are in 2 completely different seasons to right there in the same episode. Let's get into it.
It'll be a memento of the family I love.
Number 1. In Season 2, you may have noticed that 4 different episodes open with almost the same shot. Episodes 2, 6, 9, and 11 in Season 2 open with a similar image of Cuphead and Mugman's house. Little things change from version to version, but for the most part, it all stays the same.
Is right.
Number 2. In the 8th episode of Season 2, you may have felt like you were seeing triple when the gates of hell opened. The gates comically opened 3 different times in this episode, and everything was the same minus who was running through the gate. Right down to that very dramatic music. Number 3. Cuphead and Mugman may have their behind bars sleeping arrangement wired, but when it comes to breaking out of jail, they're not so adept. Every time Cuphead and Mugman are caught when escaping jail, the same series of scenes repeats, and they always end up right back where they started.
What we need is to give up.
Number 4. It doesn't seem to matter where Cuphead and Mugman go, they always manage to find themselves in the exact same sleeping situation. And yes, this even applies to when they're in jail. Even in a jail cell, the brothers have bunk beds, and Mugman gets the top bunk while Cuphead is always on the bottom bunk. It's interesting because Mugman is really the stable one of the two, so it seems like he may be better suited for the bottom.
Good for you. Great for me. I'm very happy for you.
Number 5. You probably noticed this shot of Cuphead and Mugman's eyes in the darkness in the first episode of Season 2. This is a fairly common animation trope that we've probably all seen in cartoons before. The same image appears again in the next episode, and it turns out they're not alone. Chalice's eyes join Cuphead and Mugman's. You may not remember though that this also happened back in Season 1 before the lights came on in this scene, and Cuphead and Mugman realized that they were very much not alone in the darkness. Number 6. There's a scene back in the first season where Chalice is driving that subtly returns for Season 2. In Season 1, Chalice is driving Cuphead and Mugman around and the brothers wave out of the car window. Then in Season 2, Chalice is once again driving Cuphead and Mugman. This time they spot Hilda Berg in the sky and wave to her out of the top of the car. These scenes also definitely solidify the fact that you should avoid getting in a car driven by Chalice if you can help it. Yikes. Number 7. The devil never seems to catch a break, does he? Maybe that's kind of the ultimate karma. The devil gets electrocuted in Season 1 quite a few times. Then in Season 2, Cuphead zaps him with his own pitchfork. Maybe those devil horns are actually cat ears, because this guy seems to have 9 lives. Number 8. In Season 1, Cuphead leaves Mugman in the woods, and poor Mugman is forced to at least try to fend for himself. Then in Season 2, Mugman leaves Cuphead in the woods to teach him a thing or two about responsibility. And as you may recall, things don't go too well for him either. It never works out very well when this matching set of dishes gets separated from each other, does it? Number 9. Did something look familiar to you about the first scene in Season 2, Episode 3? That opening scene is a shot of Captain BRINEYBEARD's ship. There's a very similarly framed boat shot back in Season 1 when we see the fly trap on the water. Very different boats, very similar images. Number 10. Season 1 has 2 scenes that are clearly deliberately almost identical. The first and 8th episodes of Season 1 open with parallel scenes. Elder Kettle is making pancakes and serving them to Cuphead and Mugman. While Episode 8 clearly goes very awry from there, up until that point these scenes are almost shot for shot the same. Number 11. We can only imagine how difficult it would be at times to have a guy like Cuphead around. While he and his brother Mugman are best friends, we know Mugman definitely agrees with us. There are times, especially in this season, where Mugman starts to lose his cool a bit. And every time he does, we can always tell by the look on his face.
I ain't too worried about it.
Whenever Mugman descends into madness a little bit more, he gets a very particular look in his eye that we've come to notice as soon as it happens.
Of course I'm still upset.
Number 12. Cuphead and Mugman find themselves caught up in plenty of hijinks. It wouldn't be the Cuphead show if they didn't. Still, it's pretty surprising that in 2 different seasons, these brothers find themselves running in terror from a ghost. Cuphead and Mugman seem to do the whole running and screaming thing fairly well and fairly frequently, but can't say we blame them when there's a literal ghost right behind them. Did you notice these recycled scenes? Were there any other parallel moments that stuck out to you when you watched? We want to hear all about them in the comments. And if you love videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe to The Things Animated for more videos on your favorite animated movies and series.